Chapter 6. Those goddamn zombies. So I'm doing the rounds out on the floor. Jasmine is away today and some other girl is cashiering, but I can never remember her name, just like she can never remember her name badge, and so is always wearing a trainee name badge or some other random girl's badge on her work shirt. Thing is, what with Christine's rotating door policy of staff, I tend not to bother learning the names of those beside me anymore. Keeps you from getting too close and potentially being disappointed when they inevitably move on to greener pastures. Luke is behind the bar, no doubt wowing George and the other supervisor as well as the customers with his coffee art skills. And because it's another quiet day, I find my mind wandering, going off on tangents, and I'm reaching deep into the bowels of my imagination just to stay sane as I literally walk in circles in this inane and mind-numbing routine. I guess that's one of the many cruel ironies about the gaming profession. When you're working in it, you spend so much time surrounded by people, and yet so much time you're on your own with nothing but your thoughts for company. And so we're all in our own little personal hells, even if we do appear to be there together. Once again, nothing at all like the fucking tab ads where some young hip guy has a win and is holding up his ticket for the sexy young girls to see as he makes his way to the cashier's station to collect his ill-gotten windfall. And you see everyone in the ad cheering him on as if he's just been elected pope or something, when in the real world, none of them would give a flying fuck about it. Either that, or they'd sit there bitching to themselves and muttering, "Why couldn't that be me? Why does it never happen to me?" Oh sure, I could go up to a random mug punter and ask him or her how they are, whether they would like a free coffee, much like asking is water wet, and then wait for the inevitable responses. And then I could make a phone call, arranging to have myself castrated with a rusty butter knife while one person shouts abuse in one ear and another sings Nicki Minaj songs in the other, off-key and in Swedish. And since any conversation with any of the mug punters here is about as pleasant as having a few teeth removed by a drunken sailor, without any kind of anesthetic, I decide to head over to Millie. Sure, she may have all the same health problems that the rest of the old farts around here do, but at least if I talk with her, she might have a win and give me a few tips. And of course, almost at once, I immediately regret it as Millie launches into some story about something that then reminds her of her dead husband, and so I begin to tune out, how long's it been since I had something to eat? Damn it, I'm starving here. I wonder if she'd notice if I pinched one of the snacks from one of her many plates of food. And the idea of Millie being married and being as big as she is, well, I think of her husband and picture him as being about as comfortable sleeping next to this great big woman as Princess Leia must have been in that tiny little bikini all chained up right next to the enormous Jabba the Hutt. To make it worse, she then dives right into my least favorite topic of discussion, her son Nick. Usually, most of the mug punters don't even talk about family, but Millie always talks about her kid in the most glowing terms. Not that I really understand why. I've seen him on a few occasions in which he's driven Millie to and from the club, and he's not exactly what I think any girl, apart from his mum, would refer to as a catch. For one thing, he's a balding and heavy-set Asian guy who never dresses to impress, always wearing the sort of just lounging around the house kind of clothes like he couldn't be bothered putting in any effort to look good or something. And the other thing that puzzles me about Millie's son Nick is his job. Here is his mum blowing shitloads of cash on the slot machines every night, and here's Nick working 18-hour days most of the time at a shipping company. It just doesn't make sense. But as looking for logic and common sense is like looking for a plot or character development in the average Michael Bay film, I put it all out of my mind and just tune out as I occasionally offer an or the more in-depth, yes I see to Millie's mumbling monologue. At least at the end of it all, as I'm half watching Millie eat her food out of envy and jealousy since my stomach is seriously rumbling, she gets the bonus feature and ends up taking out a cash ticket for $800. I of course write her out the ticket and will then go to the cashier to cash it in for her due to her mobility problems, which I guess means the fact that she weighs the same as the average baby whale. As I do this, she slips $20 into my hand and I thank her for it. It is about the only genuine comment of mine in our entire conversation. Before I walk to the cashier, I slip behind another bank of machines, pocketing the cash and my gaming keys as I do so. I've never believed in sharing tips with the supervisors. After all, they're on a higher pay grade. And in physical terms, they're doing a lot less work, so I don't feel at all guilty for this little deception. As I walk past the bar, I see George gesturing furiously with his arms as if he's on an air carrier bringing in an F-18 Hornet for landing. "Mike!" George exclaims. "This is terrible. You've got to do something. It's our worst bloody nightmare." I'd like to stop George mid-rant and point out to him that since I'm not trapped in a falling elevator with a screaming Vula, as Angry Joe stands beside me yelling obscenities and threatening grievous bodily harm, that whatever this is must be his worst nightmare and not mine. But I let it slide. "What seems to be the problem?" I ask George as cheerily as possible. This is a trick I use with annoying customers as well. The more upset they are, the more I smile, and the happier I become. It's all a part of the mystery, and it keeps the bastards wondering, and that's what really makes me happy around here. "There's a bloody kid running around in the gaming area," George explodes. "And it's bingo night, and they're all about to come down for the big prize draw." And you know the Victorian Commission for Gambling Regulations have been doing lots more spot checks of gaming venues. If one of them comes in now with stuffed, you've got to find the kid and get them the hell out of there now. So we get down to what's really important at last. Not the fact that some idiot parents have let their kid wander off from their table as they sat there trying to decide between red wine or white with their main course. Not the fact that this kid is in amongst some of the worst examples of human behavior I've ever seen, and that he or she might look at these old bastards and decide, so that's what I've got to look forward to when I get old. What's the fastest way to end it all now? And not the fact that the kid might already have been snatched by some dirty old man and thrown in his car, since the car park has no security cameras and may already have been forced to do unspeakable things, like sit through a Nicolas Cage movie. I still have PTSD from the time a friend and I watched Ghost Rider. No, what George is worried about is him being responsible for the club losing some money. My paycheck is important to me, and I need my job here the way a junkie needs his next hit. That is, I know it's shit for me, but what are the alternatives? And so I begin to hunt around the gaming floor for the intruder, looking between all the banks of machines. All of a sudden, I think I see a little flash of colour moving quickly between the banks of machines nearest me. A kid? Really? Minors aren't allowed in the gaming area, and kids especially, we pay a big fine if the VCGR sees one in gaming. Even though sometimes the place takes in over 200 grand in a night, George and the other supervisors are still hysterical at the thought of being hit with a $7,000 fine. I see the kid, a young light-haired girl in a red dress walking around without a care in the world. When we were young and life was full of simple pleasures. It's just as I take the kid by the hand to lead her out of the gaming area that George's words come back to me. The old people will be coming from bingo soon. Oh no, they're coming for us, and maybe it's proof of how much time I've spent in front of action movies and video games that as I think about this scenario, my imagination takes hold of me. Suddenly, the gaming area is no longer, and in its place, I am in a battlefield as an army of brain and flesh-eating zombies held together by rotting flesh with their dead, unseeing eyes move towards us. As the young girl clings onto me for dear life and says, "I'm scared, Mike," I step forward and my foot clunks against something big and heavy. I look down and spot a belt-fed machine gun and grab it up as fast as I can as the undead horde comes inching forward towards us. The distance is pretty big at the moment, but then it's not the proximity of these monsters that worries me. It's how goddamn many of the bastards there are as they move together in unison closer and closer to us, moaning and groaning like some hellish choir. "Get away from her, you bitch!" I scream at a particularly gruesome-looking undead Vula as she comes lurching towards us unevenly with her jaw hanging loosely open and her right eye not quite in its socket. I let loose with the massive weapon, and undead Vula is ripped apart by a hail of machine gun fire as her body spasms and then falls limp on the spot. And in a moment of frenzied triumph, I smile as I look upon the undead Vula's scattered remains. Wave after wave of the bastards. Those goddamn zombies are coming at us over trenches pockmarked with bomb craters and bits of shredded up barbed wire. If only they showed this kind of determination and dead-eyed resilience in life, maybe they wouldn't be sitting in these fucking chairs night after night for hours on end as their brains turn to mush the way a zombie's body usually does. Get some! Get some! I scream at the top of my lungs as I blast away, and another few zombies rushing at me are cut down mid-stride and left with gaping wounds as they fall. The gun feels so heavy in my hands as I swivel it from left to right and pump round after round into this multitude of undead swaying limbs and decaying bodies, separating arms and legs and heads from torsos in the process. Bright red explosions of blood and guts litter my field of sight as another wave of the bastards go down, moaning and groaning rather than screaming as their legs are severed and the odd head bursts like a cantaloupe while the insides of stomachs are voided by the hot lead. All around me, the only thing I can hear is the sound of the gun, the clink, clink, clink noise as the empty shell casings fall in a heap by my huge weapon, the low, guttural, inhuman groans of the undead as they close in from every direction, and the screams and cries of the terrified little blonde-haired girl beside me. I can see Julius shuffling towards me, muttering something, probably something to do with cold fusion. I laugh even harder as I think back to the news reports that told us all in official sounding tones, "Gambling will not, I repeat, not cause zombieitis." What the fuck did they know? The smells begin to really hit home. That acrid smell of smoke as the gun heats up in my hands. The dead body smell as the corpses of the undead pile up around us that's almost as bad as how they smell when they're alive and playing their machines, which is probably saying a lot. Still, the bastards come at us from all directions as I pick them off with the huge gun separating limbs from barely kept together torsos with controlled bursts of fire. "Game over, man!" I shout as I realize I just may not have enough ammo for them all. But don't worry, I'm going to take as many of you fuckers down with me as I can. Do you hear me, you undead bastards? You're dead. All of you are fucking dead. And I laugh maniacally as I fire into the crowd of zombies advancing towards us once more. And of course, at that exact moment, wouldn't you know it, the fucking gun jams on me. Probably overheated or something. And I'm staring into the advancing undead horde with a wild look in my eyes as I repeat that mantra of, "You're dead, you bastards! Do you hear me? Every one of you is fucking dead." Just then, I hear a strange voice and the fantasy image begins to fade as once more the dull yet colourful and loud world of the gaming venue, the club, comes back into focus. The battlefield is gone, as are the zombies, and in their place are the slow-moving, shuffling old farts with their walking sticks, their canes and their walking frames as they plod on towards the machines with a disturbingly zombie-ish look in their eyes all the same. Occasionally, one of them will mutter something about how bingo went and bitch about how their numbers never come up. But all I hear are the low, gurgling groans of those zombies still echoing and reverberating out from my imagination. George has called out a name. He must be doing the cash draw for the night. And of course, as usual, all the old punters take up their chant of, "He's dead," or "She's dead," so they can get their grubby, greedy, filthy little hands on the money. Another name, one I recognise this time, is called out by George and the chant goes up again. "He's dead," they say. Gee, I think to myself, his death must have been quick, and I mean real quick, because I remember the name and the face associated with it. I'm pretty sure, in fact, that I passed the guy in question on the stairs not half an hour ago as I went up to take a leak. How totally fucking shameless these bastards really are, I think to myself, as I still hold the hand of the girl and discreetly walk her out of the gaming area and back to the bistro. "And remember, you're not allowed in the area with all the TV screens and the machines," I say to her, and she looks up and asks that question all kids ask. "Why?" "Because," I answer simply, "it's not a place for children, it's a place where grown-ups go to act like children." The really sad thing isn't the disappointed look the girl gives me as she returns to her clueless family over at their table at the bistro. No, it's the knowledge that this has probably been the most intelligent conversation I'll have for the entire night. I observe the scene before me as George stands up at the front of the club near the cashier's counter with microphone in hand as he rattles off the names. In the end, it's someone who's not here. Surprise, surprise, who takes out the cash, and so the draw will jackpot next week. This is a trick that's been going on for as long as I can remember. Management will rig the cash draws so that nobody will be drawn, and when nobody collects it, they say it will jackpot. All the way up to the maximum. Now, in theory, this means that on the night it hits the maximum cash amount and must be paid out, then every man and his dog will be there, presumably playing the machines, and thus make the club a tidy little profit along the way. The thing is, I've observed these bastards for long enough to know the way they really behave and what motivates them and so on, and it's nothing like the way management imagines things to be. In reality, what will happen is this. We'll go through the motions of having these silly little draws, and it will hit the maximum because that's the way we want it. Then, on the night, everyone will turn up, but they'll gamble sporadically and cheaply. Most will only turn up for either A, the free food and snacks, and B, the draw itself. Leading up to the draw, the regular assholes like Vula, Angry Joe, his wife, and a host of other nagging pricks will be chanting that they didn't get a ticket, even if I've handed everyone in the venue 3 or 4. They'd sell their own grandchildren for another precious ticket and a chance of winning a few $100 on the night. We'll do the draw, and immediately following this, I'll be walking around the machines as they whine to each other about how they never win. Some of them will play for a bit longer just to see if they can have some luck, but shortly after the draw, the place will begin to empty except for the diehards, that is the hard cases and annoying assholes I wish would just fucking die. And then it's business as usual. So for all their patting themselves on the back for how they're bringing in the bucks with these draws and their clever schemes, the fact is, you can't get blood from a stone, or in this case a small fortune from a cheapskate tight-fisted prick, especially when you're offering so much to him for free in the first place. So the draw concludes and surprise, surprise, the winner is someone I've never heard of before. And then, as I head up to the cashier's station, I'm approached by George and it's time for me to earn my award for Best Actor in a total farce. So, George says expectantly, I think that went pretty well. The patrons seem to be throwing in a fair few bucks, and I'm sure some of them will stick around and play a bit more, don't you think? I'd like to thank the Academy, I'm thinking to myself. And Jesus Christ. Even though I'm not Christian. You know, because everyone's doing it these days. Yeah, I think you're right, George, I say, with all the certainty I can muster. It's certainly bringing in the punters. A great idea of yours those draws were. Did you take care of that thing from earlier? George asks me, and it takes a while to remember exactly what that could be, as the loud din from someone actually having a win for a change all but drowns out my answer. Don't worry about it, boss, I assure him. She's sleeping with the fishes. What's that? George asks me over the screaming. I said I got her out of there, as per your wishes. Good, good, George replies, and hands me the microphone as he goes back to the bistro side of the club and on to more important duties. For a few moments, I'm just standing there dumbly with the microphone in my hands, not quite sure what I should say. Thankfully, in my imagination, I'm never short of the right words. I'd like to thank you all for coming to the club tonight, I begin in a cheery tone. I'd like to, but I'm not fucking going to for 2 reasons. Number 1, because I am a cold-hearted, bitter, angry, resentful prick, and the sight of you all makes me think mandatory enforced euthanasia for those older than I am isn't such a bad idea. And number 2, because you all are the bane of my fucking existence, the thing I dread most seeing in the morning when I get up and have my breakfast, and the thing I curse as I get into bed at night. The time is now 10 past 11 at night, and I'm stuck here for another 4 hours. Fuck you all. The loud noises snap me back from my colourful reverie, and nameless girl behind the cashier's station is calling out to me, Mike, can I have the microphone? Also, there's a problem with machine 45, so if you could have a look at that while you're out there. I turn around and drop the microphone on the counter as she gives me a blank look and head off towards the machines once more as the bingo crowd go through the routine of bugging the bar staff for coffees and then arguing over who reserved which machine and for how long until I just want to beat my head against the nearest wall, or my fist against the nearest patron's head repeatedly. Luke and another staff member whose name escapes me are serving the long line of mug punters at the coffee machine, and somehow I doubt he's bothering with that fancy coffee art shit at the moment. Though it's true that on some nights the old bastards will go home early on a bingo night, there are also many nights when a great number of them will stick around until the last moment we close. The old Italian guys will be sitting beside their wife's machine, watching them play as I walk by them, praying that if I ever get old, I'm not that pussy whipped by the woman I'm married to. I know that look of theirs as they sit there bored out of their minds, after all. I wear the same expression when management can't see me and I'm out on the gaming floor doing the rounds. Then, of course, some old fool will stop me with a stupid and inane question about their machine, and I'll be forced to put on my plastic hospitality smile as I explain something a fourth grader could have figured out on their own. I'll think of the staff at burger joints that are forced to spit out the same lines over and over again. "Welcome to X Burger. May I take your order? Would you like fries with that?" And the always popular, "Thanks and hope to see you again soon," or "Have a nice day," when what they're really thinking is, "2 double cheeseburgers? Would you like a heart attack with that? I hope you get hit by a bus," or "Please come again, fatso. I need a constant reminder of why I spend so much fucking time at the gym." Pondering this, I'm reminded of the tagline to the movie Clerks. Just because they serve you doesn't mean they like you. I find myself over at the bar during a lull between the inane queries of idiots, imbeciles and morons, which I believe is what people of low IQs were called back in the day before political correctness became the norm. Guess I was born after my time. And I decide to chat to Luke. "It's all good, just like you said, Mike," he tells me, and I wonder why everyone seems to be talking in code tonight. What's all good?" I ask, confused as hell. "You know," Luke explains even though I have no idea, "with the car and Angry Joe." "Oh," I reply as it dawns on me. "Yeah, that." Well, I kind of figured everything had blown over on account of the fact that I'm still walking and talking and not in a fucking coma, and you're still working here, so I assumed there wasn't any blowback on your side either. This kind of shit happens so often around here that it's just not worth anyone raising a fuss over anymore. You get used to it. I remember one time 2 mug punters were having an argument at the bar over one of the machines. One guy leaves, goes to his car, and comes back with a fucking crowbar and takes a swing at the other guy. Naturally, security intervened, management took him aside and gave him a stern talking, to after which he was ejected from the place. A few weeks pass and wouldn't you know it, that same fucking guy is back here playing the machines like nothing happened. "Christ," Luke exclaims as he cleans the coffee machine. "What do you think it'd take for someone to get kicked out of this joint for good then?" "I honestly don't know," I reply, "but I'm sure as shit not looking forward to finding out." From my spot over at the coffee machine, I spot George and Angry Joe in what appears to be a heated conversation, but that could mean just about anything with him. George looks over at me, and Luke then goes back to talking with Angry Joe. "Oh shit," I'm thinking to myself then, "maybe we're not out of the woods just yet." So as George heads over our way, I feel just a little nervous about the discussion we're about to have. "Everything okay then, Mike?" George asks me, and I nod, still a bit uncertain over what's coming as Luke continues cleaning the coffee machine. "Yeah," I reply, just explaining to Luke about how the bingo nights work and the cash draws and all that other kind of stuff. "That's okay," George says, and looks a bit flustered. What the hell was Angry Joe telling him? "Look, something's come up and we should discuss it." Oh crap, here we go. "I don't know if you remember this, Mike," George says, "but at our last staff meeting we discussed the possibility of taking some of the regulars on a bus trip down to our sister club out in the city. I know it's asking a lot as Thursday is supposed to be your day off, but it'd be good if we could have a staff member to represent the club. Christine, myself and the other supervisors are going to be flat chat this week. As you know, our 40th anniversary celebrations are coming up, and there's going to be a lot of planning involved. If you can't do it, I understand, but if you could, well, it'd be really great. Just as a Don can't refuse a favour asked of him on his daughter's wedding day, so too, it's particularly difficult and awkward at best to even think about turning down a favour from one of your superiors at work. Sure, I say, trying to sound excited, I can do that. Just let me know when and where the bus leaves from, and it shouldn't be a problem. Thanks, Mike, George says, and claps me on the shoulder. You're a lifesaver. Luke, while you're here, there's a few things I'd like to talk to you about as well. I trudge off back to the monotony of the floor, cursing myself at my crappy position in the food chain around here and my inability to say no to pretty much anything that happens at the club. If zombies really were attacking the club, I'm pretty sure I'd be the one told to hold down the fort while all the managers and supervisors flee to the safety of the rooftop and most likely are waiting helicopter bastards. Yeah, so look, Mike, George would explain, the club's going to be evacuated shortly and I was wondering, well, could you just hold off the invading zombie horde for just a little while? Yeah, no worries, George. Yeah, George would explain, that'd be real good if you could. The thing is, well, I can't really actually offer you any guns to hold them off with. You know how it is, budget cuts and all that. I can offer you a selection of knives and meat cleavers from the bistro and a baseball bat security confiscated from Angry Joe, but that's about it. Yeah, I'd say those budget cuts can be a bitch, huh? I mean, we only took in 180 grand last night. Cash must be tight around here.